Hey guys, thanks for coming out. This is movie night, and tonight we talked about Silence of the Lambs. So let's start off with Claire's call to. All right, let's just start. Did everybody enjoy the film?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. It's just an amazing film, no matter how many times you've seen it and watched it over and over again. And we're hitting off Halloween October just right, because this is going to be nothing but scary films. Thank you, Heidi, for your expertise on this. And so I'll be crying like a baby. It'll be good. So let's talk a little bit about the film. Let's talk a little bit about how they set up the character of Claire.
Clarice.
Why do I keep saying Claire? Because
I don't know.
I'm so bad at these names. I have Clarice. How did they start off with our introduction to Clarice?
She's an underdog.
Mm-hmm. And how do they visually show some of these things?
Oh, she's a student of the FBI.
Yeah,
She's still going to the academy.
we actually start off with her in the academy doing the drills and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
And how do we know that she was in the FBI academy? That great turn of the hat when the guy turns his head, and on his hat there's the big bold letters FBI.
I was gonna say that didn't they have their shirts say that something like that?
Yeah, but our first on-screen text was the FBI on his hat. So, great way to set up. Now, as she was going to the she got a phone call from her head supervisor, and as she was going to meet with him about the phone or the meeting or whatever, did you notice how the director set up some subtlety scenes to show that she was the only woman, and that it was a male-dominated career, and that
She wasn't the only woman. She had a friend.
At the beginning,
She felt
basically all of the shots you see her walking out of the running field, and we see all of the men running past her, and the men are looking at her like a sexual object, we're setting her up as an uncomfortable. She's a woman in a male dominated career. And then also you'll notice in the office there was nothing but men as she was going into the office, going, and then that great
she's seen as the outside.
And remember the elevator shot. Tell us a little bit about the elevator shot.
When she walks into the elevator and all the men are just towering over her.
Yeah.
And they're all wearing red, and she's wearing a different color, like gray, I think.
Yeah.
And she just stands out.
And that red helped us know that we're at the academy, because they used that over and over. Like when they go back to the academy and the students were wearing the red, we're like, oh yeah, we're at the academy again because the red shirt. So initially in the very beginning, we, even without words or narration, we're seeing that Clarice is as a female in a male-dominated career, by showing her being surrounded by larger men, and they were wearing black. I don't think she really had color. I think she just had gray and a sweat.
She was very muted.
Yeah, but she still held her own. She walked with confidence. She walked, with her head high. She was, and did what she had to do. How did she get called into to her adventure?
By her supervisor or her teacher or whatever he was, mentor.
And what was the misdirect that the mentor told her about who she was going to go visit, or why she was going to go visit?
That part I wasn't so clear about, because I know she was told to go there for information, but he made it sound like he didn't really need that information, and I wasn't really sure. Then why did he? I was a little confused by that part.
It was kind of like here's a half-assed assignment I'm calling you out to do. It's not really important if you fail or are successful at this assignment. It's just kind of like a learning thing, But now why was that a misdirect when he was giving her the assignment of, whether you get information?
Maybe it was to get her out of the way.
Mm-hmm.
He thought that here she is an upstart woman that he should just get her out of the way, or let her learn something on the side that may or may not be of importance to the case.
Did her supervisor have respect for Hannibal when he sent her off to her false mission?
I think so.
I thought he did.
Yes, because he sent her off without the specific knowledge that she was being sent to set up Hannibal to help with the Billy Buffalo Bill case. Because he explained later on, what did he explain to her why he didn't let her into the loop?
Because he doesn't want the Hannibal to know that she's being used to gather information. So I feel like he purposely kind of misled her, saying if you got something good, if you don't get anything great, because I think he's playing a game of chess with Hannibal Lecter. That's what I mean. That's kind of vibe I get from it. It's like, okay, here, I'm going to use you as a pawn. Mm-hmm. You don't know jack shit, because if you do know jack shit, that guy's going to know jack shit about what I'm going to do, and he's going to mess up whatever it is I'm researching.
Exactly. So her supervisor had utmost respect for Hannibal going into the game of chess. Good example on the chess thing. Now, so she's sent off to maximum security, right? And at maximum security, we were met with Hannibal's overseer. I forget his name.
The doctor.
The doctor.
The psychiatrist.
Was the psychiatrist a very humble man and a very now?
He was arrogant, and he was obviously somebody not nearly as experienced as Hannibal, and he may have even known it, but his arrogance was getting in the way. He was I've seen this a lot with. Well, I think they were throwing that around anyway with a lot of scenarios these days. It was kind of predictable, but it was necessary for the end of the movie.
The doctor was kind of a blowhard, arrogant SOB, but he also was kind of a womanizer.
Because he hit on her.
Why was it important for him to be a womanizer and Claire at the very beginning of that situation? Why was it important for us as an audience to put Claire in a situation where she was being looked at as an object? Why is that important for us as an audience to observe? Because
we're living every obstacle that she's going through, and every turn she has, it feels like another thing it feels like a hurdle that shouldn't be a hurdle in the first place.
Yeah. Do you think Claire Clarice has had to deal with male bigots before in her career, trying to get into the law enforcement? Because and you notice how tactfully she blew him off when he was obviously hitting on her. He's like, well, he didn't mention her brains or her skill or FBI. He's like, well, a pretty girl like you in town, what do you think about going out on a night in town with me? The chief or whatever the hell he was.
I think the movie did a really good job of us feeling the disgust of the objectivity and the treatment and the part where like the sheriff is taken back so that he doesn't say stuff in front of a woman, and then when she's left with all the police officers and you're left in that uncomfortable moment. And it's like a moment that shouldn't have to be because it's weird, because in that moment she's an agent, she's a little bit more top tier than the cops in that Hodunk County, but they're looking kind of down on her, and I think she even sits down for a little bit.
Yeah, she's looked at. She's down in a lower position from everybody in most of the movie.
Well, it's very important that we get the world through Claire's eyes. She's a very capable, smart individual that is great at, is probably would really excel at her job. I mean, she's when the chief was reading her credentials, top of her class, and then her chief said, I gave you an A, and she said A minus. Now, why would she remember an A minus? Because she was such a perfectionist that she wanted an A plus, and so that one A minus drove her nuts. Probably most of her academic career. She's like, this was the son of a B that gave me an A minus, so I'm going to work for him and prove him wrong, and so I imagine all of her career she's had to do 200% versus the average run, and so to meet a warden that is not a bigot and arrogant and SOB, it helps us as an audience to see her worldview. We haven't even met Hannibal yet on thing. We've just met Claire, and then we've had to realize she is basically she's a capable individual, but the world is not seeing her as a capable individual. Right. They're seeing her as a sexual object, and they're seeing her shell instead of what she is. And as a woman, I imagine that's a frustrating dichotomy. I mean, I don't know, but I imagine it's a frustrating.
Except Lecter.
Yeah, because it probably hits a nerve. It's like, wait a minute, I can relate to that BS. As it works. And so we immediately are known a lot about Claire, and also the warden, who's kind of a prick. Now, do you remember how the director set up to have us go meet Hannibal Lecter in the jail?
I want to mention something real quick. Yeah. I think because of all that worldly stuff of her being isolated and feeling, the fact that Lecter is the only person that seems to not question her ability or her actions or who she is, I think that's what makes him sympathetic. I think that's why we like him.
Well,
because
it was
he's
clear
the
to
only
me
one.
the first round with her, he was essentially testing her.
Yeah,
He
the first round he wasn't
bounds,
impressed.
Boundaries.
But then afterwards he was. But the fact that he wanted to test her, the fact that he thought she's willing for a test is, he accepted her in a way.
Yeah. Now let's talk about when we first get introduced to Hannibal Lecter. It is brilliant because it felt very much like an old school. We're meeting Dracula, or we're meeting Frankenstein, or we're meeting a werewolf in the darkest depths of the castle. And how did the director get us to Hannibal? Did we go to a top floor of a skyscraper? Or where did we go to meet Hannibal?
Didn't we go down a spiral staircase?
There was a lot of visuals, of a top view going down the stairs, going down to the depths of hell, going down that dark place to meet, what initially was the monster of the film. Hannibal was the monster of this film. We empathize and we love Hannibal, but he was the monster of the film. A man that eats other people probably shouldn't. Go ahead.
He's the devil. He's literally the devil because he makes deals, and but every time they show him, he's in a flood of light, but his eyes are darkened, and he's always referencing things that go back to Rome and those places in the Vatican and stuff like that. He's very obsessed with Italy, in particular. So is a lot of Catholicism. And when he's being tortured, the what is it called? The doctor, the psychiatrist that's in charge of the place, he tortures him with a priest, with evangelical.
Interesting symbolism,
Yeah. So there's a lot there. When he kills that cop, he's symbolizing, like with that cop that looks like he has wings. It's symbolizing his freedom, him escaping his. But is it an angel or is it a demon? It's not really clear.
No, but the lighting was great for that.
Yeah.
What was more of a downlight? Or the lights were low and they were shooting from the back, or backlit?
And it was all atmospheric too.
Yeah, absolutely. With some fog or something. Yeah. So we're getting to the first introduction of Hannibal, and as we're going towards Hannibal in this dark basement, right? Which has to be set up that way because it, as a viewer, we're getting psychologically scared of going underneath the bed to see the monster. Now, as we're going to see Hannibal, what are we told are the rules, and why do we need to be told the rules?
Because the doctor breaks the rules by leaving the pen in his cell.
And what else do the rules do for us as an audience member?
It warns you about the character. It kind of gives you the preconceived notion or the secondary what is it called? It's the thing that's used a lot in film, but in this case much larger, pre-staging.
Yeah, I think it's right on the nose. If I'm introducing people to Jennifer, do I need to put a bunch of warning signs on Jennifer saying, Jennifer will bite your head off, she'll stab you in the eye with her pencils? No, because Jennifer's not really, she's a nice individual, so I don't need to warn people in advance. But obviously with Hannibal, there was tons of warnings.
Well, he's done it in the past, but they got to establish that, because if they just said, "Oh yeah, he's just over there,"
oh, he's fluffy, cute under the chin, goo, come back with a
nice
no,
and warm and fluffy. He's over there. Just have a nice little conversation, and and get as close to the cage as possible.
Lick the glass.
Yeah.
So the warnings, even before we met Hannibal, let the audience psychologically start to say there's something wrong with who we're meeting.
Yeah, and don't underestimate the guy.
Yeah,
don't ever underestimate the guy.
You
can't put your back to him. And even with a plexiglass shield like that, which the director did on purpose, they wanted the difference in the cells. They didn't want the confinement of the bars. They wanted something to show him almost free anyway, with a clear window in front of him. And then also the lighting with him is always different when like you were saying with the light and everything.
I think it was kind of saying he was the lord of that little area
of hell.
Yeah.
So we get these warnings as we're about to meet Hannibal. Now, why on earth, as we're going to meet Hannibal, would they have a character that why am I drawing a blank? Clarice. Why is the first character that she meets in that hell? Why is he so offensive? What does he say? What is that first character that she meets in
this one before him in the other cell?
Yeah. Why is that character important before we meet Hannibal?
Well, because of what he said.
What did he say?
I'm not saying it on here.
He said, "I can smell your private parts." So, why is that an important character before we meet Hannibal?
Show dangerous.
It's offensive. That's beyond. I mean, that's the most crudest thing you can.
Well, what he did afterwards is
absolutely.
When I saw that first time, I was just, man, I can't believe they ever did. I don't think they ever did that in any kind of a film.
Oh yeah.
You know.
And again, we're trying to get into Clarice's headspace.
Yeah.
And to what could be very offensive to a young female is to just even hit her on the head with, she's just an object. Therefore, all I'm smelling is her parts. Now, why is that important? Is because we need a contrast of the most disgusting thing.
Yeah, he gives her he asks her what the guy said and what he smelled, and he's got air holes in his cage, which are a lot less, and he could just waft the whatever perfume or soap she used, which is predatorial. He's a. You could see that this is a guy that had excessive training in all kinds of this stuff. He was, my opinion, he was the joke. He is the Joker. He is everything that.
But
he could have been a Joker in a Batman movie.
But less ADD.
Yeah, right?
But we needed that contrast to present Hannibal as just as bad as of a killer as that horrible individual that Clarice met to begin with, but yet he's refined.
Yeah.
So that way we have a little bit of empathy for Hannibal right off the bat. If we didn't have Mr. Gross prior to Mr. Hannibal, there would be no contrast. And without that, we don't have a setup for empathy with Hannibal.
Also, the other inmates didn't like him either. They were all pissed at him. They all decided that he was the worst.
Exactly. But that's who Clarice meets, so that we're like utterly expecting Satan himself. And then when we meet Satan, he's actually very charming. He's actually very dignified and stuff like that. So we're not necessarily appalled by Satan when we're meeting him. Now, how did Hannibal treat Clarice when she first got there? With respect, with dignity,
with somewhat respect, but he changed because the first meeting, as I was saying, is sort of a test, and he was pushing her buttons, and to see if she was going to come back.
He also treated her very much like a pupil, very much like a student or beneath him, because
but it was getting more and more offensive towards the end. He was getting sort of toying with her
like a cat and a mouse. Yeah.
Well, he felt agitated because he felt like what she wanted was like kind of beneath her, and it was beneath this conversation.
Yeah.
So he was kind of like, "Go away, I'm done with you."
Yeah. Now, in that first meet of Hannibal, we have to, as a viewer, understand that he's brilliant, but we also have to understand that he is as dangerous as F. So. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say, it made me think, like sometimes you'll have a hero, and they like don't know their potential. Like you have like Simba, and Simba doesn't know his potential. He thinks he's no good for the Pride Lands, and Rafiki tries to tell him, but you're so much better. I was kind of thinking maybe that's what he was telling her. He was her Rafiki, telling her so much better than this.
Yeah. No, that's interesting.
You have better potential.
That's great.
So what's it called in the hero's journey? They have the mentor or the
Gandalf.
Assistant.
Yeah, the assistant.
Well, she was.
He's the assistant.
Yeah. Well, Hannibal was basically the wise guru that walks her through getting to her journey, which is capturing Billy. Why am I talking Buffalo Bill?
Bill, yeah, they all have different names apparently.
So obviously I'm struggling with this whole. But. Yes, but we needed to be able to know that Hannibal was brilliant, but as dangerous as F. And so we get a little bit of sense of that he's a cultured man because he's smelling, fragrances of lotions and a variety of things where he's not seen her necessarily as an object or a sexual object, but as a person.
But he's identifying her as being, not being cheap and tawdry, but being frugal. because he's telling her that she's wearing cheap stuff.
Yep.
And that she is basically working class.
But that was kind of like psychological warfare, where he was just trying to get in her head, trying to get her. Because, I mean, after the first meeting, she actually went up to the car and cried. Afterwards, because he was good at what he got, and he got into
totally
her head.
got into her head.
But
and one of the most famous lines in that was completely improvised.
What line?
Where he had the census taker and the fava beans and the nice Chianti.
Now that's when we knew that he was dangerous as F. Was when he went from the civil to bluntly saying, "I've actually eaten people and I enjoyed it."
Yeah.
And so us as a viewer were like, that's as crazy as F, you know?
And I was actually looking for fava beans at the market.
Yeah, I know, Furley. What's wrong with you?
For food.
You know? And he was okay with the fact that he's eating other human beings and didn't even bat an eye. He was okay with that in his persona, which as a normal viewer, like, that's just crazy as F. So, you know, we get that he's brilliant. We get that he's crazy as F. We get that also he knows the psychological warfare to get into her head. Because he got into her head, even though he, she played strong and didn't really, get off. The last shot when he was done with her in that first section was a very lonely shot. It was a wide shot of her in a chair, and he was always in a higher position. And it was showing the sadness of the big hallway, but it felt very desolate and like she was like a child just getting out of detention, and she's grabbing her bag and then walking back up towards the parking lot.
She was ashamed.
Yeah, almost ashamed as to how she was. Now, talk a little bit about the brilliant flashbacks as she was walking out of that meeting when he got into her head. How did the director do those flashbacks?
They would contrast them with similar imagery. Where she's walking through a hallway, it would kind of show a flashback where it's similar walking through a hallway or walking to her car. She sees a car. She sees her dad's car. She walks to her car. She walks to her dad's car as he's getting out of the car. So it was constantly always. It was a really clever way of bringing you back without.
I think dissolve and then big bold letters flashback now. That's how I'm gonna do it. Exactly.
It's black and white now.
Stars, crystal stars go back. Or have what's the one where they just gaze up and then they just have. You're like, yeah. So
camera goes to the star.
You're reliving it with her.
Yeah. So I mean, the way the
when she was also going to the house of the missing girl. And I guess that was the one where they found the girl or something, that she was there, and then it suddenly flashes back of her at her dad's funeral, but she's still an adult. You don't really see her as a kid
until when?
Until the very end,
when
she's facing the dad. Because you're right. Why is this guy in a coffin? Oh, it's her. It's the guy that we saw earlier, but she's still an adult. And then you see the other cut, and it's her as a kid. And it's her dad from a funeral that and he had it at her house. So
I mean, one thing that's brilliant about this film is a lot of the acting is just in the face. I mean,
it's so subtle.
Oh my god!
The director is really, really good, and yet we were going on about that. The only other film he did of any kind of popularity was The Manchurian Candidate, which was the later one, which was an awful movie. Yeah. But he's done nothing that I would say of any significance.
He did all of my favorite chick flicks. That's all I'm saying.
He went to chick flicks. What can you say?
I guess so.
I have all of his collection. No, never mind.
Weird.
So initially those flashbacks are a brilliant way to do a flashback, where we have similar, what do we call it, juxtaposition?
Contrast.
Yeah, as we're editing it together in our head, this is similar to this, or, this is similar to this. And then when we take the viewer down to the similarity of shape and tone, then we get them to the flashback. The viewer's already there with us. They're already at the funeral with their father, because we knew, that whole shot of her going to the funeral of her father was literally just a close-up of her face, and her emotion and her acting was all there. But by the time the camera jumped down to where we were seeing the father and she came up to be the little girl, we already knew that she was going to the funeral of her father, at that moment. And so it was so well put together as flashbacks that, I really enjoyed that and would like to, be better at that in my own filmmaking. Okay, so we meet Hannibal. What are some ways that Clarice builds confidence with Hannibal? Because at first Hannibal's just kind of toying with her. Why does Hannibal agree to help Clarice out?
I think it's because she stood up to him the first time. and then called him out of the blue the second time, where he wasn't expecting that. I don't think he was, and that's where you start to think that now they're starting to actually work together, because when he tells her, he gives her all these clues to go to a storage facility, and she's finding everything. It's just and you gotta look carefully at the thing for other subtleties. It's not the blatant stuff that's in your face. It's like she cuts herself on her way in, and he can recognize that she cut herself because he can smell her blood.
Yeah.
And that's pretty wild. And he's able to come up with stuff that nothing was published about.
I think one way that Clarice was able to build Hannibal's confidence was because he would give her very small clues, and then she would go and figure it out and come back and solve the riddle. Because with the storage shed, what did he give her? He said the answer is within yourself or something like that, your case file, right? Isn't that how? And she came back with, this is where you meant for me to go. Where anybody of less intelligence or less know-how wouldn't have been able to find those clues. So obviously he was like, this girl's got something. She's got some brains about her. All right, I'll work with you on solving what you really want. And also I think that he, just as a vampire loves the blood of humans, he loved the fact that he could get psychologically into her head and feed off of whatever was there in her head. Because you see some of those shots when he's staring at her soul, and then he has to almost shake his head to get out of her soul a little bit to come back to answering her questions. Do you remember a lot of those shots when because it was really close, intense, and his chin was low and his eyeballs were right at us, and he's really listening to her, and then all of a sudden when it's his turn to tell some facts, he's almost like stepping out of a trance, like he's got his fangs so deep into her psychological brain that that he's just sucking that out, and he's like living, and he's like sucking that. I mean, I'm projecting a lot of that, but I was trying to put Hannibal as if he was a vampire or was an old school horror character, because it was a modern tell of Dracula, if you will, in some aspects. My humble opinion, but
One of the things that I was thinking about, and it occurred to me on this viewing that I think what the director was trying to tell us was with the moths. The moths also represent Clarice and her transformation into becoming an FBI agent.
Oh, wow.
And because what solidifies that is not only is she the first person that finds the carapace in the mouth, but she's also the person that puts the two together when she's in the house. The moth equals him.
Oh yeah, that was the total.
And
awesome
unfortunately,
clue.
the version we watched was kind of blurry, but when she walks into the house, but right before she sees the moth, there's actually a picture of a moth that's like,
I saw that,
right in the corridor.
Oh, okay.
But it was kind of blurry, so it wasn't that clear. But the other thing was, because there's one shot that confused me the last time, but I think I know, I could be wrong, but remember it ended and it showed that kite or something that would spin around, and it was like a moth and then two moths. Because I was like, that has to mean something. That can't just be whatever. Because there's no like excess in this movie. Every shot means something.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
And
it definitely got me thinking, because when you were talking about Hannibal, the movie, I'd only seen it once, and I never liked it because they were putting him in a different light. He was, to me, they were making Hannibal the good guy. And that's one of the, and I struck against Ridley Scott for this, because it was a great film in the way it was made, but I didn't like the route it was going. And then it started to dawn on me in this case that he did fall in love with Clarice.
Yeah.
In this.
In Hannibal.
In this
one, yeah, because with the.
I think they were just heavy-handed on the second.
Sure.
yeah, well, I mean, they were supposed to end up together in the book. That's how it ends.
Okay.
Yeah, but it's the love story one.
I
didn't read the books. Yeah. Reading.
I saw that movie and I was like, I gotta read the book.
Oh, really? Yeah.
But what occurred to me though is that, so remember that moment when she goes back for the papers and he touches her finger?
Yeah, that was a sign right there.
Well, what it was more saying, that instead of like maybe
that he could have also killed her too, because you come within that touching distance with him and you're almost a dead man, because look at what happened to the cops, look at what happened to
Yeah, but I'm saying, like, for the story-wise, like, yes, it could mean that he likes her, but I think it also means that I'm passing my knowledge on to you. I've touched you, now I've given you everything you need to know, and now go forth and find him. I think it was, like, almost like God touching Adam.
Interesting.
Yeah, it was cool, yeah.
And so I think...
I always thought that was about pulling my finger.
Yeah. And so I think that kite at the end it's going from two minds to one mind, or it's like her like fusing his information now. Now she's a whole.
Yeah.
That's what I was thinking.
Well, one interesting, you bring up the moth situation. So when in the scenario is they find one of the victims in a river, and in the mouth we find the moth, or what is the name of
it's a death's head moth.
Those little pods.
Well, that was
the chrysalis.
A chrysalis in the mouth of the victim. And it's interesting because we're introduced to two other characters that she evidently knows on a personal level, and these obviously are masters in their own right of bugology. I don't know what the hell you call that.
Entomology?
Entomology. But what's interesting is that you'll notice that Clarice was willing to be a little flirtatious at that moment to get what she wanted, because she knew neither of these guys ever had a chance of dating with her, and she was in the control seat right there. But do you remember that scene where the guy's like, well, do you like soda and pop? And to get what she wanted, she's like, oh, are you flirting with me, you silly guys? Because she was in the control seat there. But if if she was in the police officer and stuff like that, she would have been like, listen, I'm an officer. But so she choosefully or selected when to flirt and when not to flirt, to advance her career, et cetera, et cetera. So it was an interesting, it was a very short little film, or short little sequence. But did you notice a little bit of that change of her when she allowed the male, just to get what she wanted, she flirted back with him? Did you guys notice that in that scene with the bug guys?
Yeah.
Because the bug guys, they didn't have a chance with Clarice at all, but they obviously spent their time
with them.
Yeah, exactly.
To get information.
Don't you feel like they're like Rosencrantz and Guildenstern? Like they deserve their own movie. Like they deserve their own.
They were on screen for so small, but they were so fun.
They were great characters.
You wanted to know more about.
Yeah. They felt bigger.
Yeah. Don't worry about him. He doesn't have his PhD. Because in that world, unless you have your diploma, you're nothing. I
mean, all they do is they play chess.
Oh, I know, with bugs. How else would you play chess? Yeah, I know, and we all know those people that that live in that universe. Thanks for the web. We have access to them all, but it was interesting to see that side of Clarice where she recognized her femininity and used it appropriate to help the job, but yet in other circumstances she would never go that far and flirt with like the head of the jailer and stuff like that. I thought that was an interesting observation. So Hannibal's helping her with the main. Why am I drawing Billy?
Buffalo Bill?
Buffalo Bill, thank you. Why do I keep saying Buffalo Bill? Tell me a little bit about the character of Buffalo Bill. Anybody? What do you guys think of Buffalo Bill? How do we get introduced to him? How do we meet Buffalo Bill?
Oh, he's a total serial killer because he lures that girl into the van.
Was
he
that
does it so precisely. He's had experience doing it.
Was that his first time luring a girl into a van?
Oh, no. I guess that was his first.
Yeah.
No, he really
expert,
he really knew how to manipulate the person, and got her in there. It was like he had her on a leash.
He played off her empathy. He played, he'd been stalking her for a while.
He knew her, so he's like pre-measuring before.
Oh yeah. And how about the introduction of the night goggles? That's the first time we get the introduction of the night goggles, which comes in the third act with the night goggles, which is brilliantly done. So we meet Buffalo Bill. Did I get it? Okay.
Yeah.
Buffalo Bill, and we already know that he's pretty efficient at kidnapping women and getting them to point B. Also, we know a little bit about like his home life and stuff like that, because we have the crazy scene where he tucks it in between his legs, so we know he's a struggling wannabe transsexual, right? And then,
but before he's been rejected so many times that they're stating in this film that he is he's not a real person that wants to be a transsexual.
Yeah.
He's a he's of something else.
Yeah, he has an identity crisis.
Yeah, but
yeah. They were trying to
yeah.
point out this subtle difference, which I don't know. I was remembering that, if they did this film today, imagine the kind of problems that they would have with today because of the all the political and all that stuff.
They try and say he's not a transsexual.
Yeah.
They state that he's not.
Yeah,
he's
and
something
he's trying.
different.
He's in denial himself, and he's trying still to do this stuff. But clearly he's got problems.
The movie though could have maybe made it more apparent or restated it because they kind of glossed over it.
No, the LGBT crowd would have a heyday on this one today if it was released for sure. What else did we learn about him? Because before the dress up scene and the tucking scene, there was the incident with the lotion, the bucket and the lotion, right? He says the object is going to put. Yeah, what did that tell us about him? He did not want to know them by name. He just wanted to see them as objects. He can psychologically separate himself from his victims, Yeah. And how did they set up that scene for him to be able to separate? What was the scene before him saying it puts the lotion in the bucket? Do you remember?
The one where they panned through his entire basement? Because it starts out with, with his love for his bugs, the moth room and stuff. And then you go to suddenly mannequins with fashions and stuff. And you see his back, and he's just...
Yeah.
You see those two diamond shapes.
Yeah.
That's another way to see what his
universe is, I was thinking when they set it up with the mayor, because the mayor's interview, they said, okay, audience, this is what we're trying to get the killer to be. Have empathy for his victim, see him as a person, and then we get to the scene where the killer is just saying, it puts the lotion in the bucket, unless it doesn't, I'm going to give it the hose again. So the contrast between the first scene and the second scene lets us clarify on the second scene, which they did brilliantly. They do that a lot in this film, where they're showing the contrast first, and then this is what I want you to know. And they did that with the mayor scene, because the mayor was like, please bring my girlfriend or my daughter home. She's a human being. Here's baby pictures of her. And so and then the agent, she bluntly says she's trying to humanize the victim. So as an audience, we're like, yes. And then we get to the scene with the killer, and he's obviously not, he can separate himself from...
I don't think he's watching TV.
Yeah. Well, yeah. He's busy sewing.
I don't get the feeling he watches sitcoms.
Yeah. He's like, you know what? This is a good one. The mayor. funny, good stuff. Yeah, no. So even in our introduction with the killer, we're getting enough clues to kind of get into his head as to who he is as a individual. Now, tell us. Let's see. Let's talk a little bit about the killer and why was he able to avoid the law for so long? Anybody?
The loss?
The law.
Oh, the law.
Why were
they not capturing
him? While?
Yeah.
And he was in a circular area that was fairly large.
Yeah.
He was trying to make it random, and then there was the clue about the third girl being weighted, and but she ended up was the third person found, while she was probably the first person that was killed. And there was a significance to that because of something. I don't know what, but that's where they start to realize what he's looking for.
Well, they realized that she was a neighbor, or she was someone that was close to his community.
Closer to him, yeah. And but the other FBI guys got the entire person wrong. And the transition to that was awesome, because they have the whole thing of the surrounding the house, and you have actions going on inside the real thing where Jodie Foster is, where Clarice and the Buffalo Bill are, and these interactions, you almost think, well, he's getting ready because these guys are busting down the door. It turns out they're at a completely different house, in a totally different area, and she has just found the killer, and she's on her own.
Right.
Her get smart moment.
Right.
Let's talk about a little bit about the second before we get into the third act. We'll get into the third act in a minute, but let's talk about the second act a little bit. So let's talk about when Hannibal escapes from that cage prison cell. Now, originally he was there because the mayor wanted to meet him face to face, right?
Well, he planned the entire thing.
Yeah, but the reason why he was in that cage was because was he said he'd only give information if he saw the mayor face to face, right? Wasn't that how it went?
I think it's a senator.
Or senator? Yeah. Why was he meeting with the senator face to face? Because he'd only tell her the information. I forget how they said that.
I think he made up some what do you call it? Like deals to give information, and so then he would get nice dinners and a little bit more of a freedom-ish situation.
And he was ordering lamb dinners.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and so now he's set up in like some high
a very temporary place in a very high-end building, probably the mayor's office or something. Yeah. But it was only supposed to be for a day.
Describe. Go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead.
Describe his escape, and then before you describe it, did you see that coming? Did you see did you predict how he was going to escape that cage, Jennifer?
I guess after seeing the escape, I kind of pieced together. Oh, that's why that pen was missing.
Sure, 2020. Yeah, well, 2020 is perfect vision. So, yeah. But would you predicted that how he escaped? Describe how Hannibal escaped the jail.
Well, first he somehow managed to grab the pen that was in his previous cell, hid it in his throat for who knows how long.
Oh, he used a part of the pen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I think it was completely missing, wasn't it? Because I think.
Oh, the pen was, but what he pulled up out of his mouth was
just the clip part.
Yeah. And that was, he must have had it somewhere in his mouth or down his throat, because he was able to carry a sentence going with all these guys as if it was a normal day. Yeah. So he had skills. He had these weird skills.
Well, some inmates, they train themselves to break a razor blade in half and they dig it into half their cheek.
Oh.
No, it's a horrible thing, but they dig it in half their cheek or half their tongue, so that when the people that they want, they've been, either you kill this person or you die, they can pull out the razor blade and get the main jugular. So keep describing how Hannibal gets out of his cage.
He orders second dinner, which the guards are like, can't you believe this guy? Second dinner.
Well, he gets them off guard.
Yeah.
That's how he did it.
Yeah, so when they lock him up, he slips that pen piece into his hand, and when the guards really do something extremely stupid, which is going into the cell,
he can be trusted.
Well, that was the angle and the camera angle and the way they did that. It was, you knew that guy's dead.
Yeah.
The confinement of that camera shot was a good clue.
Let's talk about that scene when Hannibal. So the setup basically is Hannibal gets out of his handcuffs, and he in escaping he handcuffs one of the guards against the cage, and the other guard he bites his face off. So while the guy who's missing the face, he is off being tormented by having half a face. The other guy that's chained to the cell, Hannibal has his billy club. And it's a worm's eye view that we're looking up at Hannibal, right?
Yeah.
And the music that's playing at the time is actually classical music, very beautiful, very beautiful music. And it's the contrast where we have a very gruesome, horrible act that's happening, which is Hannibal beating this guy to death.
And he's swinging as if it's a rhythm.
Yeah, he's conducting that music that's behind him.
I have a comment about that music. Well, finish your thought.
So it's the contrast of a gruesome act of Hannibal beating a man to death as blood's being splattered at him, as we're looking at him from a worm's eye point of view, and then this beautiful music that's playing in the background, and as if he's conducting the orchestra. So go ahead.
So I looked up about that music because like nothing in that movie's accident. Why was it that music? Why was it that piece? Mm-hmm. And I found an interesting blog from a professor of music that had a whole thing about why that piece of music was chosen. And no, it wasn't on the blog, but I heard from somewhere else that piece of music was made to be a lullaby. But he was saying that the way the music sits and it keeps going. It goes da-da-da-da-da. It never feels like it quite finishes the melody, right? It feels like it stops halfway, and then it goes back.
Okay.
And he was saying that literally the music is saying it's trapped.
Oh.
And so he's trapped, right? So it's literally saying, through the music, it's telling you what this scene is about. about his being trapped.
That's cool.
And so then at the end when he's sitting there and he say he's like a composer, that music is all of a sudden it's making full melodies.
Yeah.
Wow.
So brilliant.
Well, like you said, there's nothing in a major film that is put there accidentally. So it's important of us as film makers to analyze these. Why do they do this lighting? Why do they do this cameraing? Why do they do this music? Because it all has meanings. I mean, the director and they got together and they thought on all of this stuff, prior to have it happen. Okay, so both the cops are being beat to death. And then how does Hannibal get out of his cage? How does he get out of that?
Oh, well, he used...
Jennifer. How does Hannibal go from beating down the cops to getting out of... because that whole building was surrounded by cops, right?
He did the old switcheroo.
Be more specific?
Be more specific. Okay, so... he planted it so that he was the dead cop with the dead cop's face.
Okay.
And it looked like his face got all torn up, but not
so you can't
torn
identify.
off.
And what was the misdirect that they gave the audience to make us think that Hannibal was still at large?
The elevator.
The elevator.
Sorry.
It's the elevator with the blood dripping down, and that's when the FBI guys are like, "That's probably him up there."
Yeah.
Gotta secure the building.
Yeah.
And after they get the cop all good and carted out the building, they go and expect the guy that is Hannibal, and with proper caution, with shot test, guy is living dead. Okay, that sounds a little weird. I mean, if you're paying attention as the audience, you're like, okay, that's a little funny. And then they do another cut to the ambulance to say, this is what's really going on.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess after the FBI crew finally pull the hatch, dead guy flop. That's not the guy we're looking for. They immediately cut back to inside the ambulance with the big reveal of whoop, face swap, kill.
Yeah.
And the guy that fell out of the ceiling of the elevator, we actually didn't know if he was Hannibal or not because they didn't really reveal his face. We just saw the backside of him.
Yeah.
So then when they went to the ambulance, and it's going through the normal procedures of he's about to die.
Your brain's going, I think I get it.
But as a viewer, by that time, as a viewer, we're like,
viewer gets it, nobody else does.
Something's wrong. And then that great as Hannibal rips off the face of the other guy, and his face is just a red monster. Hannibal is a monster more so, at that moment as he's killing and eating everybody, to escape. I think that's the last time we really see him in his most gruesomeness until he's on the phone, right?
Yeah.
So that is like the pinnacle of the monster being revealed at that moment, relatively speaking, visually, right? So it's a gory scene, but there's a reason why it's so gory, and because it's the plateau of him as a full-blown monster, So that's interesting. Okay, let's go to the third act. So the third act, we think that the FBI has found the original killer, and they're swarming the house, and then Clarice.
Yes.
is still investigating some of the first girl that got murdered, right?
She's investigating, but she also is running off of her hunch.
Yeah.
And that's how she ends up knocking on the door of the house. As everybody else is thinking, that's the thing about the cuts. They're brilliant. Because everybody it's pushing the viewer thinking you got the guy, but it's not.
Oh, the misdirect is brilliant on it. Yeah, because
Mm-hmm.
we think that the FBI is surrounding the proper house, and then when we realize that when the killer answers the door and we see Clarice at the door, we're like, wait a minute, how is she at the same location? Because that's 300 miles away. But what got Clarice to the house was the connection of the original first victim used to do sewing with an older lady.
Yeah, and that older lady owned that house.
Yeah, and now we probably all assume that older lady.
She's in the tub.
Yeah. So how did we assume that the older lady was killed in that house?
Because he didn't really say how she died. I don't think. Right? I don't think he really.
He never mentions that he died.
Yeah,
that she died.
Yeah.
It was Clarice that said, oh, and she passed on or something like that. And
Clarice immediately started asking for tax forms or some sort of say, because if you look at how she's acting, she's looking around the house and it's not decorated like a man who's in his 30s.
Like
it's decorated like an old lady's house.
Right.
And so her radar is going up. Like he just moved in and just started trashing the place.
Yeah.
But her radar is going up that this is like my grandma's house. So where is the sale of this house, and why can I not find her, et cetera, et cetera. So she's very observant. I mean, that's one thing that's brilliant about her. She's so observant, on minor details, on a variety of things. So thus brings her into our killer's basement, our killer's domain.
Mm-hmm.
Now let's talk about the last scene with the night vision. Tell us about that.
The night vision.
Yeah, where she says freeze, and he just kind of, all right, I'm out, and runs down into the basement.
Well, the scene where she chases him, all of a sudden, all her training from the FBI, you start seeing where all the all the problems that she might have had are starting.
But then it gets aspirated with the lights going out.
Yeah, but she's still aware, and she's still. You could tell she's still thinking about those things that they told her to think about. They're still running through her mind, even if she's not, because near the end she's just a wreck.
It's muscle memory. She unloads the gun, pulls out another cartridge, pops it in, just raw muscle memory as it's happening. Yeah.
She hears the click. Yeah, she's done.
It is her training.
But the closeness of the guy's hands.
Going
to her face.
Describe that scene basically. So we're seeing two people's point of view in that. Well, actually,
only one. Really.
That's right.
You're seeing it through his goggles.
Now that I think about it, that's right.
You're seeing it through his night vision.
Yeah.
And she's completely unaware of anything around her. She's blind.
How do we know that she's completely unaware of it?
She's bumping around.
She's
knocked over.
And she's not holding the gun correctly.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, she's kind of.
Yeah. So we know she's stumbling completely in the dark without seeing a thing. And I love that observation that you made when we were watching the film about does the East have nothing but creepy basements? The answer is yes. That is the mandatory of every house in Middle America going east.
And it's bigger than the house.
Exactly. Do you want a creepy basement? Come by the house. It's part of how it goes.
Part of the thing too is, I don't know if you guys saw, but how he was making allusions to that he's the Antichrist, and the writer was because there's imagery that's on him. He has a tattoo of the spear from Jesus, and he had he was basically, I think, wearing someone's skin cap, and it was Jesus's crown. The way it was the way it was torn a specific way across the forehead.
Wow.
And then he had a thing right here, and it's like some cross.
Cross with the dots.
Yeah, it's like a more Jesus-y cross, I guess, is what it is. But but he lives in an underground lair, so he's kind of the Antichrist, right?
Interesting. I didn't catch that. Very, very clever. That explains his last pose when he was tucking it, because he was doing a crucifixion, relatively speaking, with his pose in that tucking it scene. So very, very interesting.
And to think the guy played a detective on Monk for years.
Oh,
that guy played Buffalo Bill.
Oh, did he?
I love his
It was an
voice.
awesome show. I love that show.
I love his voice.
It was a very intelligent version. It was actually an updated version of Columbo, basically.
I was mad. I was mad about that show because it took away Stark Raving Mad, which would have been a wonderful sitcom. But then it took him away. I was so mad.
I always liked it. Monk was awesome.
No one knows about Stark Raving Mad. It had 6 episodes.
Two people know, and you're the other person.
Anyone I know, anyone I tell, is the other person that knows.
I wanted that sitcom to.
I did. I want it. So I still want it to this day.
you're still writing him a letter. That's funny.
It had Neil Patrick Harris and that guy, and it was amazing.
Yeah.
Wow. And that guy.
Wait, I don't know his name. What's his name? From Monk?
Some fan is, huh? And that guy. I know all my... No, I'm just kidding. I can barely pronounce the names of the people we just watched. So let's talk... is this a film that you think you could watch over and over again and learn a new trick of filmmaking?
Yeah.
Possibly.
Yeah, also one of the biggest things, though, is that this movie plays with the external and the internal, right, plots. The external plot and the internal plot. But it feels more like an internal plot, but yet it the urgency makes it feel like it should be an external plot, but it's not. The resolution is from the internal.
Oh, yeah. The great way they did that with it just came to mind, like when the dog is in the hole, and the contrast, he's like give me the dog, and then his doorbell's going off, at the same time. So
Yeah,
so it's adding more stress, and then we get the Clarice and him at the door, which is a huge psychological game that goes on. So it is interesting how they've mixed the external with the internal of the nightmare, and also with Hannibal endlessly just probing with her mind and getting in and out of there was an amazing journey for us as viewers. So yeah, good stuff. Talk about the bird and the moth being arch enemies.
Arch enemies. I know the moths get armies.
Clarice's last name is Starling, which is a type of bird, and the Billy Buffalo
Bill.
You're hanging around me too long.
Boy, yeah, his I guess animal motif would be sort of the moths, kind of. Maybe not. Somewhat literally, somewhat not. Well, he likes moths. He keeps them around. I guess because he wants to transform and I guess kind of be like them.
Yeah.
I don't know. I look. This is only something I just like.
He just wants to be a female serial killer at this point.
So what did Clarice learn in her journey to the underworld and then back again? What was the lesson that she learned? The silence of the lambs. What was the lambs that what was the symbolism of that being revealed about her psychological journey? Because initially she really just wanted to save people. That was inside of her. That was who she was as an individual. That the story of her not being able to save that lamb. She ran 2 or 3 miles with a lamb. That's pretty heavy, So psychologically,
and she didn't need it.
Yeah, she just wanted to save somebody, anybody, one.
Yeah.
And because she wasn't able to do that as a kid, she felt driven to do that as an adult. And did she save anybody in this film?
Yes.
Yeah, she saved that girl.
Yeah. So go ahead.
Oh, and she said that the lamb was very, very heavy, just like the heavy girl.
It should have been a cow.
Oh my God! So she learned that she could save the lambs that she wanted to save as a child, right?
Yeah, but even though she does it at the end when she is going through the motions of graduating from the FBI, it feels like a very much down. It feels like she's like the height of her emotion it's now going downhill. It feels like complacency, and it's not exciting.
It's not a celebrational moment for her.
I think it just feels complacent. It doesn't feel. I feel like it's not negative or positive. It's just neutral. I feel like she's gone neutral. Like she's like all this stuff is not what matters. I don't know. Does that make sense? I feel like it just kind of went. The energy went down.
Where she went to the normal world and then went to this amazing universe and then back to the boring world.
Normal.
Now, what made it back to the adrenaline at the last act? Somebody called her.
Well,
who called her?
Lecter.
Yeah.
And no one seemed to notice.
And as
she's like Dr. Lecter, like yelling it.
And their boss is like, "Hey, don't forget to answer that phone."
and as a viewer at this time, are we a fan of Lecter or do we hate Lecter?
We're a fan.
I'm a fan of him. We're a fan because he's brilliant. He's as mean as hell, but he's
a crafty
why do we love Hannibal Lecter so much? What is it about him that?
Well, I said I think because he met her as a person and not as a he didn't.
Object,
he didn't judge her for being a woman.
Yeah. But he was just going to go back out into the world and eat people.
You find that he does have this cause for the people that have their demise with him are usually people that probably deserve it.
And because they set that up when he finally one of his next visits was
That's not true because the cops didn't deserve it.
Probably
they were doing their
they
job.
Were means to an end, yeah.
But they were cops.
They were doing their job.
Psycho lives matter.
They were giving him his dinner. Like, they couldn't be doing a nicer thing for him.
Bloody bastards. Bloody bastards. Oh, wow. Well, any more observations of the film?
I'm sure there's more.
Sure.
That's where it comes back to where I was having my distaste for the movie Hannibal.
Okay.
Because in the movie Hannibal, his drive to go after people, all the people he goes after are bad people. And it's not random. See, serial killers, well, of course they're going to have a pattern, but they're not going after personalities. They're going after, maybe, I don't know.
I don't know what they go after.
But they were trying to make him out to be the good guy. They were changing his personality. They were changing him.
I would argue not so much, but I haven't seen the movie in a long, long time.
Yeah.
But I remember vividly the whole story about how he convinced that one guy to cut off his face and feed it to the dogs, and then have pigs eat his face or something like that. I mean, that doesn't show him in a good light. I mean, the guy was kind of a dick, but it was still kind of like, no one deserves that.
A bigger dick move. Good job.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, did he give him drugs or something?
Yeah,
I think
heavy drugs and stuff.
And that's
and psychological stuff. That
and turn him into like a Dr. Seuss monster.
Yeah.
Gary Oldman.
Very ugly. Yeah. Sure. Well, this is definitely one of those films we can talk about forever and a day, but I think we probably should close this off because it's way long. So let's sign off. This is Rick.
And Rich.
Heidi.
Jennifer.
Thanks for listening.